Welcome to the Culture Bunker. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all the rest of it. Yes, this is very Madchester, late 80s, early 90s, and the reason for that is today I'm going to be talking about one of the greatest albums of all time that was released exactly 33 years ago this month, and that is the Stone Roses debut album. Now, to talk about the Stone Roses, is I accidentally saw them at Dingwall's in London in 1985, and they blew me socks off. I then managed to track down off Tony Michaelides, who was a plugger in Manchester, a copy of their debut single, So Young Tell Me. And I was a bit disappointed in it because it wasn't as good as the band that I'd seen. The Stone Roses' real story, though, is that they were managed by Lindsay Reed, Tony Wilson's then wife, and also Howard Jones, who then managed the Hacienda. Now, what happened was Tony sacked Howard Jones as the manager of the Hacienda and divorced Lindsay Reed. And so suddenly the Stone Roses found themselves out in the cold, couldn't really get a gig in Manchester, felt frustrated because they weren't getting the press or anything else. So they went around Manchester spray painting their name everywhere, which just inflamed everybody in the city against them in terms of the venue owners and the Manchester Evening News, who were never going to write about them. Oh, go and watch this band, because they'd basically vandalised and graffitied all over Manchester. So to get round this, cleverly what the Stone Roses did was they invented the warehouse party in Manchester. And Steve Adge, their then tour manager, I think he still is, actually came up with this idea where they described a gig of theirs as an all-night video shoot, and they did it in the Arches around Piccadilly Railway Station, and it was £5 for a ticket, an all-night party, they'd sell the booze there and everything, and you would buy this ticket, but so the police couldn't raid it. It was officially a video shoot, and you would get a ticket with a 1p fee sellotaped to the back, and the ticket described you as an extra in the video shoot. Now, after that, the Stone Roses released Sally Cinnamon. They were still playing these great gigs. The audience in Manchester for them got younger and younger. And I always think if you want to really know what's going to go on, don't talk to some trendy 19, 20, 21-year-old. Talk to a 14 or 15-year-old, and that's what drove what became later known as Madchester, and especially the Stone Roses. They appealed to the really young people. Loads of girls there, and it was the girls and the women in Manchester who invented the baggy look in Manchester. It was all those 15, 16, 17-year-old girls who wanted to dress in baggy clothes and go out. And so when you went to gigs by the Happy Mondays and the Stone Roses in that era, you would find a lot more women than you would at normal kind of Manchester rock gigs. If you'd gone to see a Manchester band like the Chameleons or someone years earlier, it would be 90% blokes. But Madchester brought something different. Again, with the Stone Roses, they had no support in the national music press. I mean, the NME didn't do a proper write-up on the band until November 1988, which was a month after I'd arrived at Key 103 to take over doing 6 till 9 every evening and 2 till 5 on Sunday afternoons. And because I'd won some National Sony Radio Awards for the Best Specialist Music Show, I was allowed to play whatever I wanted. So it ended up with me playing up to 3 Stone Roses tracks every night or every show for like the next year. And then Sarah Champion, the 16-year-old NME stringer for Manchester, and also wrote the Word page in the Manchester Evening News, was the first person to get a proper write-up on the Stone Roses in the NME. But the NME themselves had dismissed the band completely. And what was really interesting to me was it wasn't until their debut album came out in May of 1989 that the NME themselves started taking any genuine notice. And what was particularly interesting is Jack Barron, when he reviewed the Stone Roses album, said it was terrible, that it was a bit like the Rain Parade slowed down, or they'd taken too many drugs, and that Ian Brown couldn't really sing. They thought, that they were big heads and all the rest of it. And yet, he even made reference to a guy he'd met at a party who was off his face, who said to him, "This is going to be the greatest rock and roll record of all time." And here we are 33 years later, and for a lot of fans, music fans especially, that Stone Roses album is in their top 5. And I have to say, for me, they were the leaders of Madchester. Everything else that happened with Madchester was everyone trying to get on the Stone Roses coattails, and in particular I remember like Tony Wilson hated them because they were competing with the Happy Mondays, and then accidentally heard them being played at the Happy, at Gaz Whelan's house, and went, oh, this is good, who's this? And they went, this is the Stone Roses. And so then he put them on the other side of midnight doing Waterfall. So the Stone Roses, all these years later, you've got to remember, without the Stone Roses, they changed the whole picture, I think, of Manchester music. It was a little bit overcoated before then. It was a little bit earnest, even though there was a lot of humour in the Smiths and there was a lot of fun in New Order. They brought it back to that kind of, that pop, the thing for the pop kids. And they basically were the foundation that Oasis were able to build on, to be maybe a poppier version of the Stone Roses. But I would still say, the Stone Roses were... they were like a cultural atom bomb in Manchester, and they still are. And it's strange that the people who disliked them then still dislike them, because they somehow 33 years later feel that they had to have been right to ignore them in 85, 86, 87 and 88. The weirdest one was even City Life magazine in Manchester at the end of 1988. I mean, I was astonished when it tipped all these Manchester bands for the top in 1989, and those bands were Yargo, the Inspiral Carpets, James, the Waltones even. Who wasn't in that list? The Stone Roses, who actually defined the next 2 years really in terms of Madchester.
Yeah.